Thank you for being a part of the Voices of Orion project. This video is a follow-up to the Elizabeth April Psychic group chat from October 13th of 2019. There's a whole backstory to the information that she gave me about my one particular lifetime in Egypt that she talked about. And I'm going to get into that after you watch the clip from the Elizabeth April 2019 group chat. And I'm going to have some fascinating information that connects with that, as well as a memory that I have of standing before the Great Pyramid when it was active and completely new. So stay tuned until after the video, and I'll see you then. Take care.
Awesome. Okay, let's go over to Nathan. All right, first question, please.
Okay, I have a very strong connection that I feel with Egypt. And I was wondering if you could find something out for me.
Yes, I can. All right, Nathan, let's take a look here. 1 second. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay, cool. There's multiple lifetimes here with you in Egypt, but there's one for sure that's just profound. And it's so cool because this is kind of who you've been in lifetime after lifetime. So this is a pretty good indication of who your soul is. So instantly I get drawn back to this ancient Egyptian past life. You were a male in that lifetime, and you were, I don't like calling them slaves, but you were a worker. Okay, you were a human, you were a worker. Now, back at this time, this is when there was basically the expansion of that empire. So this is when the pyramids were being built. Like, this is ancient times. And during these times, while the pyramids were being built, there was Anunnaki walking around, and there was also reptilians who were walking around. So there's probably a couple of other different interdimensional beings as well. And then the humans. Humans did a lot of the menial labor, and the things like moving the giant stones was all done with technology. It was anti-gravity technology. And so you were one of the operators of one of these devices, and you would move the stones and whatever very effortlessly. But you were a rebel, and this is who you've been in lifetime after lifetime. You were so anti-government, you were so anti-establishment, you were so anti, the powers that be. And you went to all of your worker buddies, and you're like, this is kind of fucked up, isn't it? Like, what are we building for them? Because you guys had no information on why are we building these giant structures? What is, the development? What are they doing what are we doing for them, rather than what are they doing for us? They're doing nothing for us, right? And so even though there was an expansion of the population because you were being fed and taken care of and those kind of things, but you're like, why don't we take one of these devices, these anti-gravity devices, and why don't we make well water? Why don't we dig into the ground? Why don't we create, established living situations and homes for all of us? Why are we just serving them? Why can't we serve ourselves? And so you rallied all these people, all these workers, right? You're like, let's go, let's do something, whatever. And so they were all backing you, and you were kind of like this rebel leader, I guess, in a sense. And so it was interesting. It looked like this little black box that would hover, and this is cool because I didn't know the extent of this information or technology. There's this little black box that would hover over each giant stone, and these stones were like many tons. Little black box, it would hover over top, and it would create the stone as anti-gravity. in order to activate the box, it wasn't just a button that you pressed. It looked like a little tiny like gun almost, and you would shoot the electromagnetic frequency into the box from the gun, and then it would be anti-gravity. That way, the technology was protected from the workers who were working on it. Okay. And so you basically did this whole scheme. You ended up stealing one of these little like guns, and so you had that, and then you ended up stealing one of these black boxes. It was really interesting. Once the stone was in place, you ended up disabling the black box, and you basically hid it, and you took it. And there was lots of black boxes, like thousands of them, because there was all these stones being moved around. And then eventually you're like, okay, what do I do with this? I don't want to get caught with it, but I also want to like make some changes in society or whatever. And eventually you did end up getting caught with the technology. And then you're like, just tell me, like, give me the information. Like, why are you creating these giant pyramids? What is the technology behind it? Why do you have that technology? And they basically ended up killing you, sacrificing you, before you ever got any of those answers. So there's almost like there's been this, I don't want to say like hole in your soul, but there's this gap of information within you of why were the pyramids built? I don't know if you've ever looked into it, but they were basically like giant batteries full of like electromagnetic radiation and that kind of technology. And like irrigation systems and stuff like that. But yeah, so you were never really fully given the information. Ever since that lifetime, you kind of had this like thirst for rebelling against the system, rebelling against the government, really like disclosing the truth. And you have, very similar to, I believe Anna, it's a sacrifice over and over again that you've done for the greater good of humanity. And your big purpose is truth. You want to disclose the truth. You want to disclose the information. And you've been very brazen. That's the word. You've been very brazen about your rebel kind of rebelness, and so you've been killed lifetime after lifetime for being so brazen. And it wasn't until a couple lifetimes ago where you're like, look, I gotta chill, I gotta just be human, I gotta shut down my like thirst for knowledge, and I just gotta relax for a little bit. And now you're starting to kind of get back into the balance of having the information, having the truth, wanting to rebel, but not necessarily putting your life on the line to do so.
Hey everybody, thank you for watching that video clip from Elizabeth April. I want to thank Elizabeth for doing that for me, and I want to thank you for taking some time out of your day to watch it. So now it's time to get to the story that's in the background of this, what really happened to me after I got caught with that levitation device. Now, at the time that I was a slave, I was in my early 40s, and if you know anything about ancient Egypt, if you reach your early 40s, you're on your last leg, and that's pretty much the end of your lifetime. It's very unusual that people made it that far. The only people that were capable of getting that far were the pharaohs, because they had medical help from the extraterrestrials. So I was in a situation where I wanted to help the villagers. I wanted to steal this device, and I rallied the people around me to help out, but they didn't help. I mean, it was more or less my endeavor. So when I hit it and I got caught, and of course I got caught, because you're dealing with a telepathic, actually multiple telepathic species. So I wasn't aware that they could figure this out, but they immediately did. So what happened is I wasn't sacrificed. I was arrested, and then I was beaten and tortured, and then I was poisoned in my cell. And that was pretty much the end of that lifetime, and it had a long-lasting effect on my personality, which is what she brought up in the video. So now let's get into how they built these objects or these great monuments. Now, Elizabeth talked about a black box type of levitation device that would float above the cut stone and levitate the stone around, and she said that I had a handheld controller device. Now, the way this would work is that it wasn't a situation where I would point at the black box and then move the stone. What the handheld device would do is when you held it in your hand, it would interface with your consciousness. And as long as you held it, you could control the direction of not just one stone block, but multiple stone blocks. There would be a group of stone blocks that would come through that I would have control over with this device. And the other slaves would gather around each of the cut stones, and they would position these stones wherever they had to go in the order that they had to go in, because each stone was cut and actually made to fit specifically in a certain place. These were all computer designed. we call it computer-aided design today, but that's what they had back then. Not the Egyptians, but the extraterrestrials. So I was capable of actually controlling multiple stones. Now, how did they get these from the quarry? Now, the only quarry that we really know about that I'm aware of is Aswan, and the quarries that the stones came for the Menkaure pyramid, which is the one that we were working on, came from a different quarry. And there were multiple quarry sites that are still hidden under the sand and haven't been discovered yet. So the stones were cut and then they were sent along from the quarry to the build site. And this was done in the case of the Pyramid of Menkaure, which is just over 50,000 years old. What they did is they set up 3 giant levitation towers that were under artificial intelligence. They were AI controlled, and they were equally spaced from the quarry. There was one right near the quarry, and then you had 2 others that were positioned and equally spaced out until the stones reached the build site. So if you were to look at this from the air or from a distance, what you would see is that you would see a long line of cut blocks just floating across the desert in a series of lines or a series of groups, with a black box floating over each one. Now, once they reach the build site, what we would do is, or my job was to hold the device and control a group of these stones, and they would be moved to the build site, and then the slave workers would stand around the stone using the palms of their hands and their fingertips. They would then position these stones wherever they had to go, or the stone blocks, that is. So that's how this was done. And so now let's get to the last bit of information that I have, and this has to do with a memory that I recovered probably about 10 to 15 years ago. I'm not quite sure when. I had requested to get a past life memory from one of my many past lives on Earth, and I went into a meditative state to get it. And while I was meditating, I was suddenly transported back to ancient Egypt, where I was standing before the Great Pyramid. And what was cool about this is that it was nighttime. It was very dry and arid. It was one of the periods where Egypt was dry. And I'm standing in front of the Great Pyramid at quite a considerable distance. And over top of me, or right over top of my head, were 2 beautiful arched palm trees. They were bent to create an arch, and they almost touched one another. And the memory was so clear that I could see the palm fronds. I could literally count them if I wanted to. And as I stood and I looked at the Great Pyramid, which was peeking up above the fronds of the trees, it was right above the arch, you could see this massive golden pyramid, and it was glowing gold, and there was no perceivable sources of light. And that's because at nighttime, the pyramid produced its own energy. And what it would do is that there was technology present in the pyramid. You had a capstone, which was technology, and then you had technology integrated into the pyramid complex. And pyramids sit on ley line intersections, and what they're designed to do is to harness and amplify and actually accumulate geomagnetic energy, and then specifically focus it for certain purposes. And at nighttime, the pyramid glowed like it was solid gold. It would just have this glow to it. And during the day, you couldn't see it because it was white limestone. So it would shine from the light of the sun. But at nighttime, against the dark night sky, it was absolutely breathtaking because it would glow like it was pure gold. And there was more to it than this, because the pyramids have multiple purposes. They're mainly ritual chambers, but they're also there to create mind-altering effects in the worshiping population. And they were capable of actually creating Tesla coil-like light shows in the sky. But the main thing that I noticed in this particular memory is that there was a mind-altering energy that was flowing around the entire complex. And it had this incredible effect. It felt so good to be around it, but it left you with a sense of awe and importance for the monument. And you could literally feel it. It matches, it's very similar to the energy that you get when you're in the presence of an extraterrestrial that wants you to feel their energy. You literally get a buzz from it. You can feel it vibrate throughout your body if they want to do that. I've had plenty of contact where they don't do that, but on occasion that has happened. And it was just this incredible energy, and that's part of the mind control when you're living and working around an ancient pyramid complex when it was new, because the purpose of it is to create a mind-altering environment to where the worshipers who are under the control of the extraterrestrials will build pyramids, worship in temples, and completely carry out the extraterrestrial agenda. So that's what I wanted to share with you, and I'll be getting into more about these pyramid complexes in the future, and I hope that you'll be here to watch them. And I want to say that reality is our Creator's dream, and we are nothing but thoughts in a never-ending story. And with that, I will leave you until next time, and take care and learn to love one another, because love is going to save humanity, not violence and not war. We need love in the world. And take care. I'll see you later.